You're listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome to Max A. Pooch's Awesome Animal Advocates on the Pet Life Radio Network. I'm Keith Sanderson, creator and host of Max A. Pooch's Awesome Animal Advocates, award-winning writer, animal expert, and sidekick of Max A. Pooch, the canine champion for animals and the environment. Each episode of Awesome Advocates is dedicated to an individual or individuals whose work helps improve or save the lives of animals and make our planet a better place. We are fortunate that today we are able to take advantage of the fact our guest, Dr. Roger Mugford, is in from the United Kingdom attending the American Professional Dog Trainers Association annual convention in Hartford, Connecticut. Dr. Mugford is widely acknowledged as being Britain's leading animal psychologist. He holds advanced degrees in zoology and psychology, and after pioneering the practice of behavioral therapy for pets, Dr. Mugford founded the Animal Behavior Center in 1979, which is the largest of its kind in the UK. He founded the Company of Animals and invented numerous training accessories, including the world-famous Halti head collar. Dr. Mugford is a patron of Britain's Dogs for the Disabled, a trustee of Cancer and Pro Detection Dogs, and was awarded the Blue Cross Welfare Award. Currently, he is active in the defense of dogs facing unjust treatment before the law. Another of his current endeavors is building awareness of animal shelters through an organization called Wetnose Aid. We'll meet Dr. Mugford in a moment and learn what Wetnose Aid is, if animal advocacy is the same or different in the UK than in the US, and more. But first, a word from our sponsors.
We'll be right back, right after these messages. Stay tuned.
Pet Life Radio, the #1 pet radio network on the planet, joins forces with iHeartRadio to put the power of your pets in your pocket. Awesome! Download the iHeartRadio app and rock Pet Life Radio on your phone, on your tablet, on your Xbox, in your car. Pet talk, pet tunes, and fun pet times. Pet Life Radio and iHeartRadio. Positively Possum.
Let's talk pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Max A. Pooch's Awesome Animal Advocates. I'm your host, Keith Sanderson, and our guest today is Dr. Roger Mugford, a pioneer in animal behavioral therapy, author and activist for the humane treatment of animals. Welcome, Dr. Mugford. Thank you for being with us today.
It's my pleasure, Keith. And I should also say, and I'm a farmer as well. And I love wildlife. I'm not just into dogs. I love all animals, really, and especially wildlife that finds itself behind bars in zoos and the like. I don't discriminate between the value of one animal kind versus another.
Well, that's great, because I think that's true of most advocates. Even though we may specialize sometimes, there's a deep empathy for those that can't talk and suffer at the hands of humans. And I read you're currently involved in an organization called Wetnose Aid. Can you tell us about Wetnose Aid and what its mission is?
Well, as you know, Britain is a sort of home and enthusiast for stand-up comics, and every year there's something called Comic Relief, when a whole week is devoted to people involved in humour, which are also raising money, a lot of money, for children's charities, disabled children with leukemia and the like. It raises probably of the order of $1 billion worth of from charitable giving during that week. And we thought that really a lot of the same sort of giving instincts can be harnessed for animals. So we have a Wet Nose Day, where people go around wearing a funny black foam nose to look like a dog or a cat, and we all do crazy things to raise awareness about animals, and people give a lot of money at collection points in veterinary surgeons and pet stores and the like. So it was the first of its kind this year, and I'm sure it's going to grow each year as time goes on.
Am I correct in that it's sort of an umbrella organization for smaller, less known animal shelters?
Exactly that, yeah. I mean, there are big national, international charities like the RSPCA that are well known in the US, and the Dogs Trust that I've already mentioned, which are fantastically well funded, like, By the We in the organization in the US, some really well funded, well structured animal charities in the US as well. And they have the benefits of PR professionals animals and professional fundraisers. But the little ones, like literally a lady who will rescue cats that she sees running feral and unprotected, or brings in wildlife. There's a little group called Miss Tiggywinkle, which is, as you'd expect if you're a Beatrix Potter fan, they rescue injured hedgehogs. And they have a little specialized animal hospital just dealing with hedgehogs. So these little guys don't tend to get attention beyond their local media. And we want to bring them together and talk about all the great things that are done by individuals, direct action.
That's a very interesting concept. And then do the organizations that are participating in this, do they apply for grants, or how is the funding distributed to them?
Indeed. They've got to put forward, evidence of the money being spent in a worthwhile way for the benefit of animals. And the good thing about these little charities is that they tend not to carry big overheads. They main offices in expensive cities, but rather they're run from somebody's front living room at home. And they often no directly salaried people employed. It's all by volunteer labour. And there's a lot of that goes on in the UK, and I suspect a lot of it goes on in the US as well. And these people deserve recognition for the time and effort that they put into the work they do.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if something like that would work in the U.S., because I talk to so many of my guests are, just as you suggested, small founders or workers at small animal shelters, or maybe a specialty. They're not well funded, like most not-for-profits are always looking for funding and trying to run something and find money. It's both are full-time jobs, and they have a difficult time doing it. And is there a website our listeners could learn more about this organization?
If you Google Wetnose UK, it'll come up, I think. And I'll do some research and get the information to you.
Okay, that'll be great, because that's, that really does sound like a good idea. And I don't know, as vast as as big as the United States is, if that could work, but maybe it could work on a statewide basis or a regional basis here in the States.
Exactly my thought too.
Exactly. Wow. Now, you're also involved in defense of animals. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's about?
Well, we have something called breed-specific legislation, which some states like Denver City has in the U.S. as well. And I just think it's outrageous. I mean, we've got rid of racism. We're doing a pretty good job at getting rid of gender bias as well, and a bunch of other sort of hang-ups that humans have about other humans. So why the devil have we got this hang-up about pit bulls? And it tends to be that specific breed. And the UK introduced laws banning pit bulls, allegedly, in 1991. Well, 24 years later, we've still got the same laws and the same injustices, and it's been a very long struggle, because not only are pit bulls being picked up and accused of being illegal, but related similar-looking breeds like, obviously, Amstaffs, but the English-British Staffordshire Bull Terrier as well. And so these poor families have had their pet, much-loved dog ripped from them, and they're criminalized for having it. Now, in the early stages, these dogs were killed, were put to sleep, and if you like, state-sponsored killing. And things have got a little bit better. Now they're allowed to keep them, but they have to have them neutered, tattooed, which is very unkind, I think, and microchip, which is sensible, and kept on the lead and on the muzzle all times. The evidence is that these dogs are no more or less dangerous than any other breed, like a German Shepherd or a Border Collie or a Jack Russell. Actually, Jack Russells are probably one of the most popular breeds in the UK, as you'd expect, and well represented for dog bites. We all love a cute little Jack Russell, but not so much a pit bull. I think it's anti-American, don't you?
Yeah.
Because in my offices in my warehouse in Connecticut, I'm really pleased that there are 2 pit bulls in there that are pets and well looked after. And it's okay to have them here on the East Coast, but we've got the same BSL problem in Canada and in a bunch of other countries in Europe, and they never work. And really, it's people that create bad dogs, and it's people that fight dogs, that set dogs on other human beings, that are using dogs as weapons. And that is undoubtedly a big problem in the UK, in Holland and elsewhere, where some unpleasant people use dogs for all the wrong things.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if I recall, looking back through my life, at one time the big dog that everybody seemed to be against was the German Shepherd, and then the Doberman Pinscher, and then the Rottweiler. Yes, and 99 and 9/10% of the time, it turns out it's the owner who made the dog that way.
Yeah. Having said that, there are some breeds of dogs that have particular propensities, and I will concede, and it keeps me busy. German Shepherds that defend their yard or their space, their home more than most. They're very territorial. Or Pit Bulls and Staffordshires tend to be overrepresented for dog-on-dog aggression. But these are problems that can be treated. These are problems that can be avoided by early puppy socialization, early training, which, of course, I'm a big advocate of. And you expect a greyhound to run, and you'd expect a Jack Russell to go hunting rabbits and chasing squirrels. But beyond that, all dogs are lovely, and all dogs can be made man's best friend if people go about it in the right way.
Sure, I think a lot of it is people just being aware of how, if they have a breed of dog, how it may be wired, and then what to watch for and how to teach it or socialize it, and that can make a big difference.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the variety, the diversity of dogs, which are all man-made, of course, and man-made over probably as few as 1,000 generations, 10,000 years, that they're really interesting, and I really adore the diversity of dog breeds that there are, and of course, and the mutts.
Exactly. Hey, you were talking about being here in the States, and do you perceive major differences between the UK and the US in approaches to solving the challenges of unwanted or homeless dogs and cats? There is a big difference, and I don't understand supremacist or something, but the UK dog population is more responsibly owned than in the US, I'm sorry to say, I think, is my impression. Now, you have extremes in the US. There are people who dress their animals up in funny coats and carry them in their handbag, and, really super indulgent, high-end, if you like, little dogs and chihuahuas and so on, the Paris Hiltons of this world. And you get other dogs at the other extreme that get dumped in shelters, and 7 to 10 million dogs every year get recycled in the US, recycled often into black bags and landfill. And it is a disgrace, really, and it worries me greatly. It's one of the things that attracts me to keep coming back to the US, to try and overcome this overpopulation. I was hearing of a producer of puppies in one of the southern states that produces 70,000 puppies, a puppy farmer, 70,000 puppies, and they will sell for $500 to $2,000 a piece, puppies. And they're shipped all over the country by airlines and surface freight, like so much commodities. And we that business, that industry just doesn't exist in the UK, doesn't exist in most European countries. Where there is overpopulation, I mentioned in the southern European states, Turkey, Greece, along the Mediterranean area, we know those of us from the north of Europe are down there doing a darndest to educate and help and reduce that by subsidized spay-neuter programs, which also exist in the US. But no matter how many people responsibly neuter their pet dogs, there's this massive industry in the Midwest and elsewhere, and some of them sort of religious minorities in Pennsylvania, that for which breeding puppies is a big business, and it seems to be socially acceptable here. It would not be in UK or Holland or Germany. As you're probably well aware, there's a big outcry against it, but I think what so much about it in the United States is ignorance. Max a Pooch, my dog companion, is a registered black lab, but his owners turned him into animal control at 6 months of age. And I would say the odds, and he had no training, absolutely, he didn't even know what a leash was. So you can imagine a healthy, energetic 6-month-old lab without a bit of training. And they turned him in with his registration papers, AKC registration papers. And I think probably they were the typical family that went out and said, oh, let's get a doggy, went to a pet store, bought a puppy mill dog, had no idea what they were getting into, because they probably bought a lab because they read someplace they're the most popular dog in the United States. But they didn't read the fine print that these are active dogs that with brains and intelligence and need to be, those traits of it need to be looked after, and actually they need to be exercised. So at 6 months, he had turned from a fat, roly-poly little puppy into an obnoxious teenager. And I'm really sure that's why they got rid of him. And they probably paid, as you said, $1,000 or more. And now they're just throwing this away. Disposable dogs, I guess, is what we take. I do want to ask you another question, though. What's the most common behavioral problem in dogs in the UK, and what about the US?
Well, I can't speak as an expert on the US situation, but talking to professional colleagues here at the SAPDT meeting in Hartford and other colleagues, I get the distinct impression that it is still what we call separation problems. In other words, dogs that howl when they're left alone, that wreck the apartment, that pee and poop in all the wrong places when they're left alone. And any of you who've got smartphones, then I would ask that you set up your smartphone on some high ledge where the dog can't reach it, and just film what your dog or your puppy or your kitten, for that matter, gets up to. Maybe your teenage kids as well. And you'd be amazed. In other words, you don't need to have an expensive webcam, although they're becoming increasingly popular. But you could get a bit of a depressing insight into the distress that your animal feels. That's really common in the US, much less common in the UK because we've had so many great TV shows about dog behavior. Our own Victoria Stilwell, who now lives in Atlanta, Georgia, she's had a great series. And I and others have talked about the simple procedures that actually cure and prevent separation problems in dogs. And most British owners know what to do. And there are also some commercial products that help. There's a pheromone series called Adaptil that help dogs cope with separation. And there are a simple training process that puppy owners should start with that prevent it. So in UK, I'm known as Mr. Aggression because I deal mostly with aggressive dogs, and it's dog-on-dog aggression. So dogs on leads or off leads that pick a fight with another dog, and if you like, social skill inadequacies in dogs, and that's what keeps me busy.
Yes, I saw that. Your work is quite valuable because there can be nothing more frustrating than having a dog you love and he's great around the house and you take him out for a walk and all of a sudden he's the neighborhood nemesis. But we need to take a break right now. But when we return, Dr. Mugford will share with us why he chose a career in working with animals, and he's going to provide advice for any of our listeners who are contemplating selecting a similar career.
We'll be right back, right after these messages. Stay tuned.
It's designerpetsweaters.com, the latest fashion trends for our furry friends. Hand-knitted designer sweaters for your precious pup or cool cat. Beautiful couture patterns for your pets, including custom-knitted formal wear, casual wear, yachting, and even sports themed. Many designer pet sweaters include feathered Tammy hats, top hats, and a lot of sparkle. Each sweater includes leg loops, front paw sleeves, and leash opening. Visit designerpetsweaters.com to order your four-legged fashions today. Your pets will stay warm for the winter and be runway ready. Large or small, we fit them all. designerpetsweaters.com.
Hi, this is Tim Link, animal communicator and pet expert and host of Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Have you ever wanted to know what your pet is really thinking? Do you want to find out if they truly understand what you're trying to tell them? Ever wish you could build a better understanding and closer relationship with your pet? Well, now you can. Learning to communicate with animals is a 4-part on-demand workshop. In the workshop, you'll learn the essential techniques that are necessary to communicate with animals, including what is animal communication, breathing correctly to achieve the perfect state to communicate with your animals at a deeper level, using guided meditation exercises and method to communicate with animals, and how to send and receive information from your animals. So if you're wanting to learn how to communicate and connect with your animals at a deeper level, visit petliferadio.com/workshop and purchase and download Learning to Communicate with Animals. You'll be glad you did.
Hi, this is Marcy Davis and my service dog Whistle, and we're your hosts of Working Like Dogs on Pet Life Radio. Working Like Dogs is the show where you can learn everything you ever wanted to know about working animals or working dogs. Whether you're a member of a working dog team or you've just seen a working dog or animal out at the mall or the grocery store and you're curious about how these amazing animals work with their human partners, then Working Like Dogs is the show for you. Join us for the inside scoop at Working Like Dogs on PetLifeRadio.com.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Max A. Pooch's Awesome Animal Advocates. Our guest, Dr. Roger Mugford, is one of Britain's leading animal psychologists and founder and CEO of the Company of Animals. Dr. Mugford, what led you to decide to make it your career working with and advocating for animals?
Well, I qualified as a clinical psychologist, so I was working with people, but I've obviously had a country upbringing. So I'm a farmer's son, always had animals, always interested in wildlife, and pretty soon I just realized that clinical psychologists work with people with behavioral and social problems, just neglected, we're talking about back in the 60s and 70s, neglected this interesting relationship that people have with their pets. You know, old people couldn't be brought into social home care because they didn't want to, they were worried about who was going to look after their cage bird or their dog or their cat. And social service professionals just didn't take any account of this pet owner relationship. And so I began to delve as a research scientist into what lay behind this giving relationship, this wonderful altruistic caring for another animal that apparently doesn't give anything in return except love, and sometimes, messy floors and expensive vet bills. But, it's a love-driven relationship that academic psychologists and practicing clinical psychologists were not interested in. Well, I was, and I did some of the pioneer research into this human-animal relationship, human-animal bond. And the first conference we had in 1973 or thereabouts in Scotland had brought 12 professionals together. And now the latest International Human-Animal Bond professional conferences, there are up to hundreds of attendees now. It's a really big topic that's on the minds of educators, of social workers, medical people, and of course those of us interested in animal welfare. So it's a big talking point worldwide, and we now do take pets seriously. I mean, even the funny things that pets do are taken seriously.
That's very interesting because I see a trend here in the United States. I think we may be behind the UK in that, but I had a guest on from the New York City Mayor's Alliance, and she was talking about how one of their battered spouses, battered women's locations were now allowing the women to bring their dogs with them. And they said that sometimes they actually didn't want to go there because their dogs couldn't and would stay and take abuse from their spouse rather than leave their dogs and see their dogs continue to take abuse. So I think a lot more work needs to be done here in the States on that aspect with the elderly or the abused.
And not just the States. I think it's a worldwide issue. Funny enough, the country that is probably the most liberal and opens doors to pets as well as people is France. I go to France and you go in a cafe, restaurant, hotel, and it's universal, dogs are welcome. In the US, I guess it's about 50-50, and in the UK, it's no better than a third. So we're a bit more fussy in the US. But what really I love about this relationship is that it's all based on love, and it is the child-parent relationship. We talk now increasingly about your pet parenting, and the things that drive you to want to own a dog and do the best for your cat and so on is exactly the same as a parent worrying about the kid at school and his health and his development. And people will invest in puppy socialization classes and specialized training, and they get interactive games and toys to keep their animal abused, and spend on pets is enormous. And very often this pet is a substitute for having a child because people delay or don't go in for having children at all, and it fills that big void that would otherwise exist in people's lives. It's a great social phenomenon that we must thank our lucky stars that we're part of that process.
Yeah. In fact, I think I read somewhere that the grieving time for a human over the loss of a companion that the human is considered a member of the family is essentially very similar to the grieving time of the loss of another human in the family.
It is, exactly. And, we could call it pathological grieving because, oh, come on, put yourself together. It was only a pet. You can go out and buy another one. And it can really bring people down into the depths of depression. But similarly, though, there's so many good stories about the way in which, acquiring a puppy or a kitten or a rescue dog, hopefully, because I'm keen, like you, on taking on rescue dogs, that can just turn people's lives around. turn people's lives around who are in trouble with the law. In some of the prisoner dog training programs that are started in the US, fantastic, and they've been copied in Europe as well. People who've got relationship problems that find themselves in jail for some misdemeanor. They get them into these dog therapy, dog training programs. I'm the founder trustee of a charity called Medical Detection Dogs. One of the main applications of these dogs is to go to people who are diabetics and suffer repeated, constant hypoglycemic shocks, so low blood sugar episodes, and they lose consciousness, and people think they're drunk, but they have to be rushed off to hospital and given emergency treatment. These dogs can spot a likely blood sugar low with amazing accuracy and really save lives, but not only that, they rebuild the diabetics' confidence in themselves. They have a constant companion that has to go to work, transport, home, sleep, bed, and they're alerting us sometimes up to 100 times a day and telling them, hey, you need to go and take some sugar.
Wow, that's amazing. 100 times a day. That is incredible.
Some diabetics, will be some listening to this program, that have great difficulty managing their blood sugar, insulin levels, and getting it right. And even with all the technology and the monitors that are available, there's nothing as good as a dog. Dogs can detect cancer. Dogs can detect a whole range of physical problems as well in human beings. And of course, we all know that dogs can kind of read our minds, can't they? They're very perceptive of what humans are up to and our emotional state.
They sure are.
Love the little critter.
Now, I wouldn't be surprised that as an animal advocate, sometimes you are accused by people who don't feel strongly about animals. They may even ask you a question like, how, with all the violence and human misery in the world today, can you explain how you can justify spending time, money, and resources improving the lives of animals? I mean, what do you say to people like that?
Well, I think you've already mentioned that there's a strong correlation between cruelty to children, bad parenting, and being thoughtless and cruel to animals. So the two kind of go together. Pathology, it's a common pathology. But really, we're in a world where there is family sizes that are smaller. A lot of people don't want children at all. A lot of people, I was with somebody yesterday who said, the only thing that keeps me sane and keeps me level, and somebody who had ADH, hyperactivity syndrome, and his dog mellows him, and he takes his dog everywhere, and it's actually got an official statement that it is an assistance dog, but in his case for a social behavioral problem. And so it's not just guide dogs, but keeping human beings mellow and nicer people to know. I used to work for a market research company that was alternatively researching people's chocolate eating habits versus their pet habits and their pet food purchasing habits, because I was a psychologist. And overwhelmingly, the people doing the field research for the pets said how much nicer the people were whose homes they visited, exploring the pet-human relationship and looking into their chocolate-eating habits. And you see it again and again, and people who professionally work with animals and with pet owners are blessed because we meet constantly such nice people.
I think you're right. I think definitely. I mean, it seems to me that the pet owners and the animal advocates that I've met doing the show are just pretty good people, and it spreads to other people too. It's just not reserved for animals, and then they shut off with humans. And but speaking of animals, which we've been doing, you're also CEO of a company by the name of the Company of Animals. Can you tell us a little bit? It's
a bit of a play with words, isn't it? The Company of Animals. But it is. Obviously, I said I'm a farmer's son, and I'm still a farmer. Got 2 little farms in the UK, and I'm blessed with being able to enjoy the Company of Animals, and we do things to make dog ownership and cat ownership, but more dogs, easier. So finding simple solutions that make the pet owning experience more successful, more economical, and less dangerous. So it grieves me that so many people are bitten by dogs. And people are pulled over and injured by their dogs being taking them for a walk instead of the other way around. And so that goes back to the Halti. And the Halti is something that came from my interest in horses. I ride. I've got a big stock bull, weighs a ton, and I can steer this bull around on a head halter. And so I, years ago, 30 years ago, had a bad back, like ridiculous slip disc type back. And I was lying in bed, a cripple, having to see my next patient, who I knew was an Irish wolfhound, big animal, 60 kilos in weight. And how the devil am I going to do that? Well, I just took one of my calf halters that we train calves to go ready for being shown later on in life, and it perfectly fitted this dog. Man, I can treat dogs like horses now. And 20 million halties later, I can say that was quite a good idea. So
how many did you say? 20 million?
20 million, yeah. And we have a new design of muzzle because, again, I'm very involved in the sharp end of dog bites. A better muzzle that allows dogs to be treated, to be given payoffs, if you like, tidbits, and that they can drink and pant, and so a dog can be safe behind this muzzle, but still have a good quality of life, and it's called the Baskerville Ultra. Well, we're selling 1 million of these muzzles a year. Now, that's 1 million people or 1 million dogs that are not being injured and bitten by other dogs, the dogs wearing it. And so simple solutions. We've got too many people shout and hit and throw rocks at their dog that is a naughty dog, and some dogs are undoubtedly naughty. So what can we have as a penalty for bad behavior? So I'm keen on payoffs for good behavior with treats, but then I'm just going to go and give you an audio recording of a penalty. That little hiss you could hear is like the hiss of a snake or of an angry cat or a goose, and it's called a pet corrector. And in the US, they're often called pet protector, because people with little dogs like to walk and know that their dog, little Chihuahua, won't be attacked by a big dog. But the pet corrector, again, sold 3 million, and that's 3 million people who are not, hopefully, shouting and screaming and hitting their dog, but still have a penalty to stop the dog barking, chasing the cat, stealing food off the table, and the like. So I find sometimes high-tech, but often very low-tech solutions to everyday problems.
Are these products sold in the United States? And if so, where can our audience get more information about them?
The big national chains. If I was the BBC, I couldn't say this on there, but there's a company called Petco. It's rather well known. They stock most of our products, and in generally, or high street stores. And if you go online to companyofanimals.us, there's a website there which will guide you to an outlet. Many of the online, like Amazon and those who sell online and carry on things as well. So wide range. It's all directed at training, but training at home by dog lovers. So you don't have to go, but I'd still encourage people to contact their dog trainers, because dog trainers and behaviorists are a good bunch of people. That most behavioral problems can be sorted with common sense and the right equipment and by owners themselves.
I think you're right about that, and then maybe back up with some help from a trainer when it's needed. We've run out of time. The time has really gone amazingly fast, Dr. Mugford, and we thank you for being with us today. And once again, can you tell our audience, if they want to find more information about the Company of Animals and your work, where they might go online?
They can Google my name, which will come up with all sorts of funny things about the bad things I've done in this life. But basically, if we go to Company of Animals, not just companyofanimals.co.us, and we go to our website, and then we can direct you either to my office or to people, like-minded people who are distributing our products in the US.
Well, Maxey Pooch gives you 5 big tail-wagging woofs for the work you've done, because he knows your work has directly made the lives of animals and dogs better. And I also want to thank Mark Winter, executive producer and co-founder of Pet Life Radio, and the sponsors who make this program possible. And please join us for each and every episode of Maxey Pooch's Awesome Animal Advocates. And we want to thank, again, Dr. Mugford for being with us today.
My pleasure indeed. And I wish I could listen to your program every week. I'm going to try. Go online.
Yeah, just go online and Pet Life Radio and look for Awesome Advocates, and that's us. And be sure to tell your friends about it. And also, those in our audience, remember, until we meet again, if you do a good thing for an animal today, your reward will be you have helped to make the world a better place.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.